Have you ever stared at a blank page or sat in silence, waiting for an idea to strike, only to feel like your mind has betrayed you? Today, we end that weakness. Creativity is not magic, it's strategy. In this video, you'll learn how even the dullest mind can become a fountain of dangerous, world-shaking ideas, if trained Machiavelli's way. You believe creativity is a gift, then you have already lost the war of the mind. This is how Machiavelli would begin, ruthless, precise, and correct. We have been conditioned to believe that ideas descend from the heavens like blessings, that some men are touched by the divine spark of innovation, while others remain servants. Routine and imitation, fools. Creativity has never been a gift. It is a constructed weapon, forged in silence, shaped in repetition, and sharpened by intention. And like all weapons, it favors the one who understands how to build it, not the one who waits to inherit it. Consider the prince who believes power is passed through blood. He is overthrown by the soldier who trained every day in the shadows, waiting to strike. The same is true for you. If you are waiting for creativity to come to you, you will die with blank pages, empty canvases, and unrealized potential. You must not wait. You must force the idea into existence. Machiavelli understood that human nature is lazy. Left alone, the mind will rot. Left unchecked, imagination decays. But place it under pressure, and it transforms. The black coal of the mind turns into diamonds when forced beneath discipline. And so your first task is to destroy the myth of divine inspiration. A man who produces one idea every few months is not gifted. He is untrained, he is emotionally addicted to perfection, and so he fears the ugly first attempts. But the Machiavellian thinker knows that quantity is the first ingredient of mastery. The first 10 ideas you produce will be garbage. This is not failure, this is purification, because the 11th idea, born out of that struggle, might be the one that cuts through the noise like a sword through silk. You do not start with brilliance, you brute, force your way to it. The question is not, how can I be inspired? The question is, how many times can I attack the page before it yields? Every morning, the general sharpens his weapons. Every morning, the creative mind must do the same. Sit at your desk, and before your ego has a chance to protest, begin generating ideas. Not good ones, not genius ones, just raw material. You are building a battlefield, and the battlefield must be filled with bodies before you can name a king. Routine, my friend, routine is where creativity hides. Those who write only when they feel it produce scraps. Those who write daily, even in pain, eventually produce power. Why? Because repetition eliminates fear. When you create every day, you no longer tremble before the blank page. You no longer beg your mind for a miracle. You command it to obey. This is what separates the great strategist from the passive dreamer. One treats the mind like a servant, the other worships it like a god. Machiavelli would remind you, the prince does not wait for peace to prepare for war. He trains in peacetime, so when chaos comes, he dominates. Your creative preparation must be the same. The time to build ideas is not when you're desperate. It is when you're consistent. So if you think you are not creative, allow me to tell you a secret. You are not uncreative. You are undisciplined. You have not shown up often enough to break the chains of self-censorship. You have not bled enough words onto the page to uncover the diamonds buried beneath. You are not lacking talent. You are lacking a system of conquest. Creativity is a kingdom, and it does not hand you the crown. You must storm the gates again and again until it surrenders. Flood your mind with problems. Starve it of perfection. Feed it time limits. Punish it with deadlines. When you no longer give your imagination the luxury to wander, it will fight to produce. And in that fight, your best ideas are born, not in peace, but in pressure. Keep writing, keep breaking, keep forcing, keep sharpening. Machiavelli would not admire the artist who waited for divine spark. He would admire the one who forged lightning from the silence of failure, again and again, until the world mistook it for genius. The man with no enemy becomes weak. The mind with no barrier becomes lazy. This is the hidden law of creation that most never understand. The average man dreams of freedom, unlimited time, infinite resources, total choice. But what he doesn't realize is that freedom is the death of invention. You give a man too many options and he chooses none. You give a mind too much room and it produces nothing. This is why the most powerful ideas in history were not born in comfort, but in crisis. It was in war, in exile, in betrayal, in confinement that genius was forged. Because only under pressure does the mind become desperate enough to evolve, and only desperation breaks through to true innovation. Machiavelli never romanticized creativity. He did not believe it came from play. He believed it came from necessity. The strategist is not creative because he wants to be. He is creative because he must be. His enemies surround him. His allies betray him. Time runs out, and in that cornered state, something extraordinary happens. The mind, trapped, begins to move like a hunted animal, wild, sharp, efficient. It starts noticing patterns it would normally miss. It takes risks it would normally avoid. It becomes creative not for fun, but for survival, and that is when real creation begins. You want to be creative, then put chains on yourself. Limit your tools, shrink your canvas, burn the escape routes in your mind. Force your thoughts to fight. Only then will you see what your brain is truly capable of. The myth of creative freedom has ruined generations. They wait for perfect conditions, a quiet space, the right music, enough time, the correct mood. They pamper their mind like a fragile child, and then they wonder why nothing great ever comes from it. The Machiavellian knows better. He turns discomfort into a furnace. He uses lack as leverage. He doesn't need more, he needs less, because less makes the mind hunt. Remember, these constraints are not walls, they are mirrors. They reflect your real capabilities. When your time is cut, your ideas become sharper. When your tools are taken, your resourcefulness awakens. When you can't rely on habit, instinct is born. Creativity begins where comfort ends. Some of the greatest works ever created were built with almost nothing. The most iconic films made on no budget. The most timeless books written in prisons, in sickness, under censorship. Why? Because those minds were not wandering. They were cornered. The mind, like the body, gets stronger by fighting resistance, and yet we flee it. We think we need inspiration, but what we really need is pressure. Limitations force decisions. Constraints kill overthinking. They slice through the fog of infinite options. And the moment your brain has no choice but to act, it does. You stop polishing imaginary ideas in your head and start building real ones. Ugly, fast, brilliant. There's a reason your best ideas often come in the shower, in traffic, or just before sleep. It's because your brain is operating in a confined state, too distracted or too restricted to overthink. It's trying to solve with whatever tools it has left, and that scarcity breeds clarity. The Machiavellian mind does not cry over limitation. It uses it like a weapon. You give it one day instead of 5, it delivers. You remove the usual tools, it adapts. You say this must be done with only 3 words or only 1 paragraph. Or only 1 hour, it becomes more powerful, not less. Because it stops pretending it has time to be perfect. And it starts behaving like what it truly is, a weapon under fire. You want to write better, give yourself 10 minutes. You want to generate ideas, use only 1 sentence and start from there. You want to be remembered, create under conditions that no one else dares to endure. This is how innovation is born, not in infinite luxury, but in strategic limits. Machiavelli would not ask what you could create with freedom. He would ask what you could create under siege, because what you build under siege is what reveals your power. Originality is the religion of the weak. Influence is the currency of the powerful. Let them waste their lives trying to be pure. Let them chase the illusion of originality like dogs chasing shadows, because those who hunger to appear unique often die unknown, but those who understand the truth, those who steal with style, bend the world to their name even if their ideas were never truly theirs. Machiavelli never flattered the ego. He knew men crave praise, and so they avoid imitation, thinking it makes them lesser. But he would tell you plainly, no empire is built without theft. The land is taken, the crown is taken, and yes, the ideas too are taken. All great minds steal, but only the most cunning disguise their theft with elegance. Look closely at the masterpieces of history, the books, the strategies, the philosophies, the revolutions. You will not find pure invention. You will find intelligent manipulation of what already existed. The Roman Empire borrowed from the Greeks. The Renaissance masters copied the ancients. Shakespeare's greatest plays were stolen skeletons draped in poetic flesh. Even the modern giants of business. Technology and media, what are they if not sophisticated thieves of forgotten brilliance? This is not deceit. This is strategy, because the Machiavellian does not worship novelty. He worships power, and power belongs not to the first man who speaks an idea, but to the man who says it in a way the world cannot ignore. To steal with style is not to copy blindly. It is to extract, refine, and reclaim. When you see a brilliant idea, do not envy it. Dissect it. Pull it apart. Study its rhythm, its shape, its effect on the masses. Understand why it works, then make it your own. Not by imitating the surface, but by absorbing the essence and reassembling it through your own voice. This is how influence is built. You take what works, you remove what's weak. You inject your perspective, and suddenly the world calls it yours. The weak man is afraid to borrow. He wants all the glory and none of the lineage, but the Machiavellian thinker understands. Lineage gives you legitimacy. If your ideas stand on the shoulders of giants, you don't look small. You look immortal. The trick is subtlety. You never boast about what you borrowed. You weave it into your work so seamlessly that it feels like it was born there. When the audience hears your words, they feel déjà vu. They can't tell where it came from. They just know it moves them, and that is the real test of creative mastery. Not who invented the wheel, but who made it turn. The fool worries that using another man's idea makes him less. The strategist knows that an idea is only as valuable as the impact it creates. And impact comes not from ownership, but from execution. If two men steal the same idea, one fails and the other builds an empire. Who does history remember? The artist starving for originality starves alone. But the tactician who sees every idea as a piece of usable weaponry becomes a builder of empires. He reads constantly, not for pleasure, but for ammunition. Every book, every speech, every quote is a tool, a spark, a fragment of brilliance to be melted down and reforged. And what makes it yours is not the source, but the spin. When Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he pulled from centuries of warfare, betrayal, diplomacy, and empire. He named emperors. He dissected their mistakes. He robbed the graves of political thinkers before him and fused it all into a weaponized philosophy. And to this day, many call it his. So if you think stealing is shameful, ask yourself, why do the most admired minds in history all have blood on their intellectual hands? It is not theft that ruins a creator. It is lazy theft, the kind that copies form without function, the kind that mimics without understanding. When you steal with intent, when you extract with intelligence, you are not imitating, you are evolving. That is what separates the sheep from the wolf. The sheep consumes what others create. The wolf takes it, rips it apart, and builds something more dangerous. And when it howls, the world listens, never realizing it has heard that sound before. The greatest enemy of creation is not the critic in the crowd. It is the executioner inside your own mind. There is a voice inside you. You hear it every time you try to create something. You pick up the pen and it whispers, "This isn't good enough." You begin an idea and it smirks, "Someone's already done this better." You push forward anyway and it roars, "Who do you think you are?" That voice has killed more masterpieces than time ever could. And yet it doesn't come from your enemies. It doesn't come from the world. It comes from you, from the insecure, programmed, self-policing version of your mind. The inner judge. Machiavelli would not pity that voice. He would dissect it, because he understood what few dare to admit. Most people sabotage their own power before the world even sees it. They execute their ideas in the womb. They silence their own rebellion before it rises. And the tool they use, not failure, not rejection, but internal judgment. Self-censorship is the most brilliant prison ever built, because you don't need guards, you don't need walls. You simply teach the prisoner to hate his own voice. The inner judge is not your conscience. It is your executioner dressed as a mentor. It tells you it's protecting you from embarrassment. It says it's saving you from shame. But its true goal is this: to make sure you never risk becoming dangerous. Because once you create freely, once you speak without asking for permission, once you dare to bring your raw, imperfect ideas into the light, you begin to threaten the world around you, and before you ever threaten others, you'll terrify yourself. That's the moment the inner judge screams loudest, because it knows, if you finish, if you publish, if you stand behind your voice, it will lose control over you forever. So how do you silence it? Not with comfort, not with reassurance. You silence it with action. The inner judge is fed by hesitation. Every second you pause to evaluate yourself, it grows stronger. But when you create without permission, when you move fast, messy, chaotic, it loses its grip. You must become a man willing to create first and judge later. You must produce ideas that make you uncomfortable, words that scare you, concepts you almost deleted. That tension you feel, that's the boundary between you and real power. The judge will tell you, don't show this to anyone. Ignore it. Show it anyway. It will say you'll be mocked. Good, let them mock. Kings are mocked by peasants who cannot build thrones. It will say you're not ready. Exactly. That's why you do it now, because readiness is a trap that keeps men waiting until death. Machiavelli didn't wait until his writings were accepted. He published truths the world wasn't ready for. He challenged morality, virtue, leadership. He didn't seek applause, he sought effect. And even when the masses called him dangerous centuries later, we quote his words, "If he had listened to his inner judge, the prince would have never been written." If you listen to yours, neither will your ideas. There is a dark beauty in not caring, in letting the world see your unfinished thoughts, in bleeding onto the page with no filter, because in that chaos and that dangerous honesty, you will strike something raw, something real, and once you do, that judge inside you won't know how to stop you anymore. You want to be creative, then you must first betray the version of you that wants to be liked. You must become indifferent to applause. You must become deaf to the inner coward that wants you silent. This is not just a mindset, it's a battle, a purge, a revolution in your head. Every time you create, you put that judge on trial, and the more you create, the weaker its grip becomes. Until one day it speaks, and you laugh, you keep writing, keep building, keep sharpening, and it, powerless, fades into the background. So now you know the truth. Creativity is not a gift from the heavens. It is a weapon, forged in limits, sharpened by necessity, stolen with elegance, and unleashed only when you silence the coward within. The world has lied to you. It told you that some are born creative, and others are not. It told you that originality is purity, that perfection is necessary, that fear is a reason to stop. But Machiavelli would smirk at such delusions, because power does not wait for permission, and neither should you. You don't need more time, you don't need a better mood, you don't need to be special, you need to move, you need to act, you need to dare. Ideas don't come from comfort, they come from conflict. They don't live in the mind, they are dragged out through pressure. They are not born perfect, they are born bloody, broken, and brilliant through use. So embrace the constraint, welcome the discomfort, study the masters and steal with precision, and above all silence the judge. Because the only difference between the forgotten and the feared is the courage to create anyway. You want to generate the most creative ideas. Even if you think you're not creative, then stop waiting. Start building and let the world adapt to you.